Hare Krishna. ISKCON Chennai welcomes you to another session of Srimad Bhagavatam. Let us recite the prayers together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakte Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So today we are going to talk about the story of Prahalada, the most exalted devotee of the Lord. So if we see in the seventh canto, what we have to learn from this is we have to learn lessons from how Prahalada he led his life and how we should not be like Hiranyakashipu. So these are the two opposing qualities which is there in the seventh canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we should learn to take the good qualities which Prahalad Maharaj he has shown us how to be a great devotee of the Lord and how not to be like Hiranyakashipu. So let us start this story. Now, Parikshit Maharaj, he's been listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukadev Goswami and he's been asking various questions. So, when he sees that Diti, now the demons are all the sons of Diti. So, when he sees that the Diti sons are being vanquished by Lord Vishnu, a question arises which will arise in most of the minds of the common man. So, he clarifies that by asking that question to Sri Shukadev Goswami. So, what is he asking? My dear Brahmana, how did the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu become partial like a common man for the sake of Indra and thus kill Indra's enemies? How can a person be equal to everyone, be partial to same and inimical towards others? Whether Narayana is partial or impartial has become a subject of great doubt. Kindly dispel my doubt with positive evidence that Narayana is always neutral and equal to everyone. Now, what Parikshit Maharaj has asked comes in the minds of many people. Though Parikshit Maharaj is a great devotee of Lord Krishna, still he asks these questions so that the doubts of the common man is dispelled. When Shukadev Goswami hears these questions from Parikshit Maharaj, he is very happy. Generally, if you talk in this material world, if people keep asking questions, the person who is questioned about the topics, he generally they get angry or they react or something like that. But Shukadev Goswami was always eager to listen to the questions of Parikshit Maharaj because he felt that that is going to help the entire mankind. So he tells him, the questions you are asking is very excellent because this gives him a chance to talk about Lord Krishna's activities and also the activities of his devotees. And what he says is, these activities of the devotees, which are extremely pleasing, they counteract the miseries of this material life. So when we listen to all these stories from the Srimad Bhagavatam, it helps us counteract the miseries of the material life. So Shukadev Goswami is very happy in narrating the story. So first of all, he tells about the Supreme Personality of Godhead that he is not partial. Why? Because now, if you take an example of a father, he has two children. One child, he is very obedient and he listens to whatever the father teaches him and he obeys and is a very good child. The other child, he plays truant. So, both are loving children of the father. He likes them both equally. But one child, since he is obedient and he is following all the instructions of the father need not uh, pay much more attention to him. Whereas this child who is playing truant and he is not listening to the father and disobeying, the father has to chastise this child to bring him to the right path. So this is what the Lord is also doing, the Supreme Lord is doing. Now the Devas, they are in the Sattva Guna, and the Daityas and the demons, they are in the Rajoguna and the Tamoguna. So Sattva Guna, generally they follow the scriptural injunctions, and they go in the right path. Though they also make mistakes, like how we saw in Chitraketu's story, where Indra also he made mistakes, and he did a repentance for that, and he also meditated in the Manasarovar lake for 1,000 years, meditating on Lord Vishnu, and when he was purified of all his sins, then he got back his kingdom. So even when the Devas also they commit some offense, even they are also punished. Whereas the demons, we see that they are killed because they do not listen. Even after chastisement, they do not listen. So this is the punishment by which the God can give them another chance to be good. So, uh, whatever the Lord does in this material world is only because of the three modes which is created by Him. Daivi Hesha Gunamai Mama Maya Duratyaya. So, this Maya Shakti is under the Lord's control, whereas the Lord who has created the Maya Shakti, he is not under the control of Maya Shakti. So, he is Nirguna. Nirguna means not it does not have any guna as most of the people think, but nirguna means he is free from the three modes which he has created. He is the controller of the three modes, whereas which the living entities in this material world, right up to Lord Brahma, we are all under the control of the three modes. So this three modes, the sattva, raja, and tamogun, they keep on changing as per the time. So if the time it favors Sattva Guna, at that time the demigods they are victorious. And if Rajoguna and Tamoguna is having the time is favorable for Rajoguna and Tamoguna. At that time the demons they become victorious of the devas. So this keeps on changing all the time. Like even in our lives, we see in one particular day we may be sattva, in another particular day we may be rajo, and in another particular day we may be tamo, or in one particular day we may experience all the three modes. So this is the result of the Maya Shakti, the three modes which have bound us. So um, the Lord is not partial. In fact, He is impartial to all the living entities because He is the Father of all. So He is equal to everyone. He is equal to everyone means He has to bring the children to the right path. So if chastisement is required, the chastisement will be there. And if mercy is required, then mercy will be there. So He treats all His children equally. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, in the ninth chapter, 29 shloka, he says, Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshyosti na priyah ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mai te teshu chabhyaham. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service to me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So, as per the karmas, the previous actions, the living entity is given a particular body, and the Supreme Lord, according to his desires and his previous action, he infuses the three modes of material nature into this person. So a person who is in Sattva Guna and he who is in Rajo Guna and Tamo Guna, he receives benedictions according to their guna. Whereas a person who is in devotional service, he is transcendental, he is beyond these three modes. So when he is doing service to God, God is saying, I am in him and he is in me. Means the Lord reciprocates the devotional service. Like we say, the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, Ye yata mam prapadyante. A person, to the extent he serves me, I reciprocate to the same extent. So a person who is in Sattva Guna, to what extent he renders service to the Lord grants him such benedictions. A person who is in Rajo Guna and a person who is in Tama Guna, according to their behavior, they are granted benedictions, whether it is mercy or whether it is chastisement. And a person who is in devotional service, because he does devotional service to the Lord for pure love of God, not expecting anything from the God, the Lord also purely loves him. Like we have seen so many examples, like how he loves Arjun. So you have all these various examples in our epics. So the Lord is not partial to anybody, he is equal to everybody. Now, to end this, what to say, to give another example, what Shukadev Goswami, he reiterates the story which had already taken place when Yudhishthira was performing the Rajasuya Yagya. Now, when a Rajasuya Yagya is performed, a Rajasuya Yagya is performed by a king when he wants to prove that he is the emperor. An emperor is a king of all kings. So, Yudhishthira, he wanted to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. At that time, none of the kings should object to him being an emperor. So, they will be subservient to him, and if any king objects, then they have to put up a fight. So in this process, all of them, they were invited, and the kings from all the entire world, they came to attend the Rajasuya sacrifice. And in this Rajasuya sacrifice also came another person who is a cousin of Lord Krishna, that is Shishupal, the son of Damagosha. Now, Shishupal was always envious of Lord Krishna. So, now how this happened is, now when this Rajasuya sacrifice happened, everybody, they have to perform a first a puja, Agra puja, that is a person who is greatest in the assembly should be given first respect. The first puja should be offered to him. So, Sahadev suggested that Lord Krishna should be the one because he is the greatest of all. Almost everybody agreed because there were so many exalted devotees, sages. Even Sri Narada Muni was also seated there. Everybody agreed that Krishna should be given the first puja. So when the puja was to be occurred, that time Shishupal objected to it. Now Shishupal was very envious of uh, Krishna right from his birth. Even before he started to speak, he started blaspheming Krishna. Now there's a story of this Shishupal. When he was born, with 4 hands and 3 eyes, and he looked very demoniac. And his mother was so scared looking at the child that she started crying and praying to the Lord. When she heard an voice from the sky, Akashwani, she heard that the person who takes this child in his lap and these arms and the eye will disappear will also be the person who will kill him. So what she did was, so many guests, they came to see the child. She kept the child on everybody's lap, and the child was in its own form. It did not change its form. At last she called Krishna and she told, keep your cousin in your lap. She just asked him to playfully do it. She didn't realize that her nephew is going to be the killer of this demon. So when Krishna took the child, immediately the arms disappeared and the eye also disappeared. So his aunt, she realized that Krishna is the one who is going to kill this child. He will be the cause of Shishupal's death. So she asks him for mercy. She tells, please don't kill my son. So Krishna tells that each person has to face his karma. Whatever actions he has done, he has to face the reaction. So I cannot do anything about it. She says, no, no, you please, you grant me some benediction that you will not kill my child. She kept begging him. So he says, I cannot say that, but I can give some time for your son. That if for 100 times he does not, till 100 times he blasphemes me, I will not do anything. After that, I will kill him. So she says, okay, I will bring him up in such a way that he will not blaspheme you. But it was Shishupal's nature to blaspheme Krishna all the time. Now, to top it all, just before this Rajasuya Yagya, Rukmini was to get married to Shishupal. That was the arrangement made by Rukmi. So Rukmini, she wrote a letter to Lord Krishna saying that she does not want to marry Shishupal. She'd rather commit suicide than marrying him, and that she wanted to marry Lord Krishna because she always thought him only of her Lord and Master. So just as Shishupal was waiting to get to married to Rukmini, right from under their very nose, that is Shishupal, Rukmi, and the entire army was stationed there. Right from under their very nose, Krishna kidnapped Rukmini and took her away and married her. So this was the last straw for Shishupal. Already he was hating Krishna all the more because he was so envious of Krishna that he never liked Krishna at all. And when Krishna took away Rukmini, that was the last straw for Shishupal. So now at the Rajasuya Yagya, when Krishna was supposed to be given respect, he started, he got up from his seat and started blaspheming Krishna like anything. Like the way he said that, who is he? We do not know. Who is he? Whether he is a king or he is a cowherd. Who is he? What identity does he have? Who are his parents? We don't know who are his parents. When the Nanda Maharaj is his parent or whether Vasudeva is his father, We do not know even his origin, from where he has come. See, actually, if we go to see, we devotees say we do not understand the Lord. His origin is unknown. We all say that. So indirectly, actually, he was telling, but he was actually with the intention of insulting Krishna. He was telling all this. So everybody was stunned, but Krishna was patiently waiting that this was the time. Now, once he finishes blaspheming, then Krishna will start to will kill him. Ultimately, what he did after blaspheming Krishna, he also started to blaspheme Sahadev because he is the one who suggested that Krishna should be given the first puja. So when he did that, Krishna took the Sudarshan Chakra and he just cut off Shishupal's head, and Shishupal fell dead. And everybody in the assembly, they saw that his soul, it merged with Krishna's body. Now, this was too shocking for Yudhishthir because Yudhishthir knew that Shishupal, he always blasphemed the Lord, and he is not able to understand this. So he asks Narada, he's saying, now I'm totally bewildered. What has happened? He's saying, even when King Vena, he blasphemed the Lord, he was killed by the sages and he went into hell and he is suffering in hell. But how come that Shishupal, he and his brother Dantavaktra, both of them, they achieved the merging with the Lord. That is called Sayujya Mukti. How is that they got the Sayujya Mukti, which even great sages and saints are not able to achieve after so many years of meditation? How is that he got the Sayujya Bhakti? Now, there are five types of Mukti called. One is called Sayujya, which is merging with the Brahman effulgence. Then Sarupya, Salukya, Samipya, and Sarshti. So this is all others are being like being in his own with the Lord. That is Salokya is being in the Lord's abode. Sarupya is having the same bodily features as the Lord, and Sashti is the same opulences as the Lord. And Sayujya is emerging with the Brahman effulgence. So he is asking how come that he got the Sayujya Mukti when even the great sages are not able to achieve. And I am not able to understand this that such a sinful person can be liberated, and that too from our very own eyes we have seen. You please explain to this, he is asking Narada Muni. So Narada Muni begins to narrate the story of Prahlad Maharaj. So he begins to say first, that is, first you should know that who is uh, Shishupal and why that he merged in the body of Lord Krishna. So he begins to explain that Lord Brahma's sons, Manasaputra, the Sanat Kumaras, when they were traveling in Vaikunta, they entered the Vaikunta and the two guards of Vaikunta, Jaya and Vijaya, they stopped them from entering and seeing Lord Vishnu. So actually, if you see in Vaikunta planets, nobody gets angry, nor does anybody stop anyone out of envy. But this happened. That is Jaya and Vijaya, when they saw these naked boys entering the Vaikunta, that is entering the Lord's abode, they stopped them because they did not see anything of such, uh, anything of this sort in Vaikunta at all. And they thought, who are these four boys just coming, barging in and entering the Lord's abode? And they stopped them. And these boys, they got very angry. These Brahmana boys, who were great sages actually, they were the oldest sons of Brahma, and they got annoyed and they say, how can you stop us from taking the darshan of the Lord? This is not the quality of a person being in Vaikuntha. A Vaishnava, one Vaishnava should respect another Vaishnava, and they should be very merciful and they allow the darshan of the Lord. How can you stop this? And after uttering this, immediately they realized, how did they get angry? That is, Lord Vishnu came and gave them darshan, and they realized that it was a mistake to have cursed the um, bodyguards of Lord Vishnu because they were also devotees of the Lord. So they realized their folly and they asked for forgiveness from the Lord and the Lord also, and they cursed the bodyguards Jaya and Vijaya to take birth in the family of Asuras for three births, and then only they will be able to come back to Vaikuntha. So the Lord says, it was only because of my consent that you have cursed them, because this Leela had to be performed. After they go, I will myself go to the earth and I will liberate them and bring them back to me. And he tells his celestial bodyguards that you don't worry, you will come back to me, and each birth I will be the one who will vanquish you and take you back to me. So this is how the sons of Diti. That is, they were born as sons of Diti in their very first birth. That was Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Now, Hiranyaksha, we saw that he was killed by Lord Vishnu as a Varaha avatar. Why? Because Hiranyaksha, he threw away Mother Earth to the bottom of the sea. And Lord Vishnu, he took the form of a boar and he was carrying her to place her in the orbit when Hiranyaksha was obstructing him. So he did not pay any attention to Hiranyaksha. He continued with his journey of carrying Mother Earth and placing her in her orbit. And then there ensued a fight between Hiranyaksha and Varahadev, in which Varahadev killed Hiranyaksha. Now, Hiranyakashipu, when he saw that his brother was dead, he was very furious. On the first birth, they were born as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. In the second birth, they were born to Vishravas and Ketaki as Ravan and Kumbhakarna. And in the third birth, Narad is telling Yudhishthir, in the third birth, they are born as Shishupal and Dantavaktra, your cousins. So now in the first birth, after Hiranyaksha's death, Hiranyakashipu, he was so annoyed, so furious that now he wanted to take revenge of his brother's death. So he wanted to kill the murderer of Hiranyaksha. That is, he wanted to kill Lord Vishnu. So if he has to kill Lord Vishnu, he has to become very powerful. What he does is, he calls all his Daitya friends and he tells them that, see, I'm going to perform very severe austerities because I have to uh, finish Lord Vishnu. So that is why I will be going to the Mandara mountain to perform meditation. So what you should do is you have to reduce all the good things which is happening on the earth, because the demigods, they receive all the energy by the performance of yagya. They get all the offerings of the yagya, and that's why they have become powerful. And Vishnu is powerful because the demigods is powerful. He starts talking all this nonsense, and he tells, but these asuric guna, these demons who have asuric guna, they are very happy because they guna is such that they want to destroy others. See, that is the people who are in Rajo and Sattva, that once they decide they want something, then they go to any extent, even to destroy everything. They will be ready. They do not think that they should not harm the others. Whereas people in the Sattva Guna, they will not harm the others. So he says, I'm going there and I'm going to do a lot of meditation. So what you should do is you go to the earth. You stop all the sacrifices where they are all praying to Lord Vishnu. You stop all these sacrifices. You burn all the cow sheds. You burn all the Brahmanas' houses. You burn all the villages. Where everything good is happening, you burn everything, you destroy everything. And he goes away to the Mandara mountain to perform austerities. How he performs the austerities is he stands with his two arms raised upward and his head also raised upward, and he starts meditating on Lord Brahma. So it is very difficult to stand in the same position for years together, and he meditated for so long that even the ant hills, they started growing over him and started eating up his body, but still he did not move, did not take a drop of water. His meditation was so austere that the fire started to come from the top of his head, and the heat from that body started to ablaze all the surroundings, including up to the Devalok. So all the Devas, they went running to Lord Brahma and they said that the austerities which Hiranyakashipu is performing is burning us everybody. And also we want to tell you that he is doing this austerity because he wants to usurp your throne. That is, he wants to conquer Brahma Lok and he wants to be the Brahma. So the demigods are informing of Hiranyakashipu's intention to Lord Brahma. So what Brahma says is, okay, let us see what's happening, and he comes on his swan carrier. So when they were coming on the swan carrier, they could not actually locate Hiranyakashipu for a long time. And then finally, Brahma, he saw in one particular place from the anthill there was some effulgence. So he understood that Hiranyakashipu was there, and he was pleased, and he appeared before Hiranyakashipu, and he asks him to express what his desire is. So Hiranyakashipu, his body all eaten by worms and this. Brahma is so pleased. He's saying, you are eaten by worms and this, and still you have not budged an inch. I am impressed by your meditation. So you ask me what you want, and what Brahma does is he takes water from his Kamandala and he sprinkles that water on Hiranyakashipu. Immediately, Hiranyakashipu, he gets a very young and youthful and effulgent body, even stronger than before, and he prostrates in front of Brahma with tears in his eyes, out of full humility. How much humility? Because he has to ask Brahma for some benediction, so he is all humility. And what is the benediction he asks? He asks for immortality. So Brahma refuses the benediction of immortality, saying that even I don't have the this of immortality. When I myself am not immortal, how can I grant you immortality? You ask me something else. So very cleverly he is trying to fool Brahma, and he says that I should not die inside, that is within any residence or outside any residence, during day or at night, nor on the ground nor on the sky. And his death should not be brought about by any being, though that is, he is telling Brahma that whatever living entity you have created, I should not be killed by any of them. Means within the 14 planetary systems, all Brahma has only created. So he's saying I should not be killed by any living entity created by you, nor by any weapon, nor by human being, nor by animal. I shall not meet death from any living entity or non-living entity. I should not be killed by any demigod or demon, by any great snake from the lower planets. Give me sole lordship over all the living entities and presiding deities, and give me all the glories obtained by that position. Give me all the mystic powers attained by long austerities and the practice of yoga, for these cannot be lost at any cost. So, because he has done so much of austerity, he is asking for for the benediction in return for all those austerities. There is one more point, like uh, in the Narasimha Puran, it is mentioned that he also said that he should not be killed in any of the 12 months of the year. So Lord created another month, Purushottam month, which comes once in 3 years. So Purushottam Masam is the 13th month. So Hiranyakashipu could not escape. So Lord, when he is asking all these benedictions, Lord has also planned everything how he has to uh, kill Hiranyakashipu. Because any person who is born in this material world, his end is definitely certain, which Hiranyakashipu was not ready to accept. So Brahma, he grants his wish and he goes away from there. Now, after getting all these benedictions, Hiranyakashipu has not lost he has not forgotten the murder of his brother Hiranyaksha, and that is always troubling his mind, and he is always thinking how he should kill Vishnu, how he should kill Vishnu. So, what he does once, with all these newly acquired powers, he started oppressing everybody everywhere, and he conquered the Devalok. He drove out Indra and everybody from the Devalok, and these asuras, they were oppressing all the people on the earth who were performing sacrifices. So these devas, they immediately came in disguise to see what is all going on this earth and how much destruction is taking place. They were very aggrieved. So what he went and captured all the devas, and he saw to it that they did all service to him. He was so powerful that he even changed the laws of the universe. Like now, when you say you do good, everything is good, the earth will give you all the necessities for material existence. But he did everything opposite. Like he terrorized everybody so much that even earth, due to fear of Hiranyakashipu, started giving so much of grains for everything. There was a lot of water supply. If he decided that there should be rain, there will be rain. If he decided there will be no rain, there will be drought, and there will be drought. This was what Hiranyakashipu did. Whatever he desired, he got. Everything was under his control. So now only the three principal demigods, only they were not under his control, whereas everybody came under his control. Now, though he had power and was able to control all directions, and in spite of enjoying all types of dear sense gratification as much as possible, Hiranyakashipu was dissatisfied because instead of controlling his senses, he remained a servant. So this is what actually Prahlad Maharaj will teach in the future. In future slides, we'll be seeing. So Hiranyakashipu, he actually performed so much austerities only for sense gratification. When you do austerities for sense gratification, it is not going to elevate you to the spiritual kingdom. It will only lead to your downfall because you are only satisfying your senses. You are not satisfying the senses of the Lord. And the senses can never be satisfied with whatever you do. How much ever you get, you will never be satisfied. You want more and more. So that is the problem with Hiranyakashipu. Though he had everything, he was still not satisfied. He was always drunk. He was always, and he was thinking that he is everything is under his control, so he can control everybody. He started to tell that everybody should call him God, and there is no God. Vishnu is not God. Anybody who worships Vishnu will be killed. So he terrorized people into calling him God, and whatever sacrifices the Brahmanas they do, they should offer the oblations to Hiranyakashipu. If they do not do that, then they will also be killed. In this way, his men they spread atrocities everywhere. Now, so much was going on. These demigods they did not know what to do. Ultimately, they knew that there is only one person who can give them shelter, none other than Lord Vishnu. So they all went to Lord Vishnu and they prayed, but unseen by they could not see Lord Vishnu. They could hear his voice. They pleaded. They, out of so much of grief, they called out to him and they asked him for help. And they heard a very strong, sonorous voice, and they could hear Lord Vishnu say, "Become my devotees by hearing and chanting about me and offering me prayers, for these are certainly meant to award benedictions to all living entities. Know all about the activities of Hiranyakashipu and shall surely stop them very soon. Please wait patiently until that time." That is saying he knows all what Hiranyakashipu is doing. He knows that. So he is asking them to wait patiently because he knows that Hiranyakashipu is going to have a child, Prahalad, due to whom Hiranyakashipu is going to be vanquished. So the Lord says, Yada deveshu vedeshu goshu vipreshu sadhushu dharme mai cha vidvesha sava asu vinashyati. So Yada deveshu vedeshu, one who is envious of demigods, deveshu vedeshu, Vedas, that is who represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then of the Vedas. Demigods, they represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one who envies the Vedas, one who envies the Devas, which give us all the knowledge. Then Goshu means cows. One who envies the cows. Vipreshu, one who envies the Brahmanas. And Sadhushu, one who envies the Vaishnavas and religious principles. And ultimately of me. Dharme mai, ultimately of me. Cha vidveshaha, Sa va asu vinashyati. So he and his civilization will be vanquished without delay. So Hiranyakashipu was all this. He was envious of the Devas, he was envious of Lord Vishnu, he destroyed everything. So he and his civilization is definitely going to come to an end. This is what the Lord is promising the Devas. And he also tells them when Hiranyakashipu teases the great devotee Prahalada, I shall kill him immediately, despite the benedictions of Brahma. So Brahma has given him so many benedictions. So Lord says that when Hiranyakashipu teases his son Prahalada, means he is going to torture his son Prahalada. So when he does that, I will immediately come and vanquish him. He promises them. So after this, the Devas now, in the hope that the Lord, because they know now that the Lord has assured them that he will come, so they are very happy and they go back. Now the qualities of Prahlad Maharaj. Now this Yudhishthir again he asks Narada Muni that why Hiranyakashipu, generally a father will chastise a son if he does something erroneously. But Maharaj Prahlad, he was such a great exalted devotee, he was such a noble person and he was a small child. Why would any father torture such a noble child? This is the question asked by Yudhishthir to Narada Muni. So Narada Muni he explains the quality that Prahlad Maharaj has. He says he has got the quality of a qualified Brahmana. Now a Brahmana is a person who actually teaches everybody about the Brahman and how a person he would be of a very exemplified character. That is the quality of a Brahmana. We must not think here that it is a caste Brahmana. This is a qualified Brahmana, means a person who always thinks about the Brahman and who also talks about the Brahman and who also teaches about the Brahman, whether he is born in any caste. So he was, though he was born in a Asuric family, he was always in Krishna conscious. Prahlada was always thinking of the Lord only, he was not thinking of anything else. He was in full control of his sense and mind, and he was determined to understand the absolute truth. So actually Prahlada's mind was always engrossed in Lord Krishna, that he could not think of anything else. And further, the Narada explains that he was kind to every living entity and was the best friend of everyone. Now, a person who is a devotee of the Lord, he understands that each and every living entity is also the child of the Lord. So, when he understands that, he gets the samadrishti that everybody is a child of the Lord, so no one is different, and that is why he respects everyone as a child of the Lord, and that's why he will be the best friend of everyone. To respectable persons, he acted exactly like a menial servant. He considered his teachers, spiritual masters, and older god brothers to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is, spiritual masters, they are representatives of the Supreme Lord. So he considered them to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, actually, Prahlada, his spiritual master was Narada Muni, because all the teachings was given to him when he was in the womb of his mother Kayadu. Then he was completely free from pride that might have arisen from his good education, riches, beauty, and aristocracy. Now, he was a devotee of the Lord, pure devotee of the Lord. He was very beautiful. He was, though he was born in an Asuric family, he was not, he did not have any Asuric gunas, and he did not have the pride of being a king's son. So, these were all the prominent qualities of Prahlad Maharaj. He was never envious of Vaishnavas, because Vaishnavas are always thinking of the Lord. He always loved all of them. Of course, he loved everybody. He was not agitated when put into danger. He was neither directly nor indirectly interested in the fruitive activities described in the Vedas. As a child, also, Prahalad, he never played like other ordinary children. He was always engrossed in the thought of Lord. And like a child, now when a small child, the mother leaves a small child to do some other work, then the child immediately cries for the mother. In the same way, Prahlada, he was always crying for the Lord, and he always felt the Lord being always close to him. He always felt the Lord's hands on him. He always felt the Lord cuddling him. And when he felt that the Lord was not close to him, he used to cry out, just as a child cries out for the mother. Prahlada used to cry out. And then when he used to see the arms of the Lord hugging him, immediately he used to dance in ecstasy, or he used to smile on his own, and tears would flow from his eyes. And even people who used to see him, they would be liberated from his purity. But most of them, they never understood why Prahlada was doing this. But he was so attracted to the Lord, just like a magnet, iron is attracted to the magnet. In the same way, Prahlada was totally attracted to the Lord, and he was always in the Lord's consciousness. So, in the fifth canto of the Bhagavatam, it says that anyone who has unflinching devotional faith in Krishna, all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods are consistently manifest. So, he was always absorbed. But demon Hiranyakashipu tormented this exalted, fortunate devotee, although Prahlada was his own son. So for Hiranyakashipu, everybody considers him as God. Now, his son, if he knows that his son does not consider him as God and considers Vishnu as God, then he is going to chastise him. So that we will see in the future slides. Now, the demons headed by Hiranyakashipu, they accepted Shukracharya as the priest. So Shukracharya was the Purohit of the Daityas, of the demons. Now, who is a Purohit? A Purohit is a person whom you put forward. So, he is the person who should guide the others. Now, Shukracharya was a Brahmana, and a Brahmana should be engaged in talking about Brahman, whereas he was a person who is not interested in spiritual culture, and he was not interested in teaching anything spiritual to Hiranyakashipu. Whereas a Brahmana should be the one who should be a spiritual master and who should teach about the spiritual culture, how to elevate a person. So now, actually, nowadays we see in our society, people are not interested in knowing about the Brahman. Like it is famously said, Balavastha Krida Shaktam, Taruni Vastha Taruni Raktam, Vridha Vastha Chinta Magnam, Param Brahma Gopina Saktam. That is in Balavastha, what you do is you spend your entire life in playing. That is the Balavastha. Taruni Vastha, what you do is you're busy in fulfilling your sense gratification. So your youth is also gone waste. Then when you become old, Vriddhavastha, when you become old, what happens? What becomes prominent? Chinta Magnam. That is, you start to worry because you worry about your health, then about your wealth. People are ready to take away your wealth. So, all this worry comes when you are in the Vriddhavastha. So, Param Brahma Gopina Chatam. That is, you have no time absolutely for Brahman. Apart from that, you're ready to do everything. You're ready to waste your childhood by playing. You're ready to waste your youth by fulfilling your desires, and you're ready to waste your old age by worrying and being in anxiety all the time. So that is why it is said that Parabrahman, the knowledge of Parabrahman should be given to the child when the child is in the womb itself. This is said always. That is how Prahlad received his information when he was in the womb. So there is no time as such that we know. Most of the people say, "Arey no, when I finish, when I after I quit my job, I will start listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam. After all my responsibilities are over, then I will start reading the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam." But um, once you come to the old age, now you say we are saying no Vriddha Avastha Chinta Magnam. So as you age, your eyesight you start to lose your eyesight, then you start to lose your hearing capacity. You are not able to sit for a long time. So when all these things affect your body, how will you listen? How will you hear? How will you see the Lord? So and already you have developed certain what to say. You have developed certain cultures or ideas throughout your life which anarthas or uh, say anarthas or sanskars, anarthas or sanskars which you have developed in so many years of your life which you will not be able to change. So suddenly if somebody talks about Krishna, it's very difficult for people to accept. So unless and until you started right from your very childhood, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. Of course, there are few lucky people who take it at some point of life and then they pursue it very willingly, but it is always best to start right from childhood. That is why it is necessary that all parents, when they have a child, then they should see to it that the child listens to Krishna Katha right when the child is in the womb. So, in this regard, even Rishabhadev, he says, Rishabhadev is King Bharat's father, who says in the Bhagavatam 5th canto, 5th chapter, he says, पिता न सस्य जननी जननी न सस्य गुरुर्न सस्यात् स्वजनो न सस्यात् पिता न सस्याज जननी न सस्याज दैवं न तत् स्यात् न पतिश्च सस्यात् न मोचयेद्य समुपेत मृत्युम. One who cannot deliver his dependence from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod. So, you should, one has no right to become a guru or a father or a mother unless they are ready to deliver their dependent from the repeated cycle of birth and death. Even Prabhupada, he will always say that non-violence means you have to introduce Krishna Katha to the people in general. Why? Because only Krishna consciousness will deliver the person from the repeated cycle of birth and death. So that is non-violence, because taking another birth itself is violence. That is what Prabhupada used to say. So real non-violence is not actually just not harming other person physically or mentally, but you're delivering a person from the repeated cycle of birth and death. So as Rishabhadev said, that a person who is a guru, he should be such a person, he should take a responsibility that he will save his dependent from the cycle of repeated birth and death. So, how can that be done? Now, Shukracharya is not doing that. He is not worried about Hiranyakashipu's repeated cycle of birth and death. He is teaching him only how to fulfill his sensual desires. So, how can one relieve one from the cycle of birth and death? The person who is teaching another person, whether it is a mother or father or a guru or a demigod, they themselves should be first in Krishna consciousness. So by setting an example, then the other person will follow. If now by us not practicing Krishna consciousness and we keep continuously telling the children that you should practice Krishna consciousness, will that take place? No, it will not. Like I can give an example of a person who was complaining to one of the gurus saying that my son is not quitting smoking, despite my telling him so many times he's not quitting smoking. He's not doing the Sandhya Vandanam. So what do I do? So the Guru asked him, have you quit smoking and are you doing the Sandhya Vandanam? He said no. So he thinks first you start doing it, only then you can tell your son. Na? Because now if we don't practice a particular thing and we tell our child that you do this, you do that, it won't take a second for the child to ask, are you doing this? It won't take a second. So always, as Bhagavan says, yad yad acharati sreshtas tat tad evetaro janaha. So what a great man does, common we will follow. So now suppose a great man, a person who is very famous, he sings very well, then people tend to throng to him that, oh, he is singing very well. If suppose another person, he is a philosopher, he is speaking a lot of good philosophy, people will throng to him. So a person who is Krishna consciousness, when this common man, he sees how nicely he is following the Krishna consciousness and how he is practicing and he is preaching only what he is practicing, he will be really impressed by that and he will follow such a person, and he will understand from this person that he will take the teaching from that person, and eventually he will be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So this is what now Shukracharya was not such a person. Now their sons, they had two sons. Shukracharya has two sons. They are called Sanda and Amarka. So what is their way of education? It is only Artha, Kama and Dharma. Not even Dharma, Artha and Kama I must say. Their Dharma is actually to destroy everything, that is their Dharma. What is Adharma, they think as Dharma. So this is only what is being taught by these, by Shukracharya and his sons. So now Hiranyakashipu, what he does is he asks Amarka and Sanda, who stay close to Hiranyakashipu's house, to be the teachers of Prahlad Maharaj. So Prahlad Maharaj, he was already educated in devotional service by Narada Muni, and he was not interested in the topics of politics and economics taught by the teachers. Why? Because such philosophy, it always distinguished people as I'm this one's friend and I'm this one's enemy, and Prahlada did not like it, so he did not want to learn these from his teachers. So what is the life's lesson? A devotee sees that every living being is part and parcel of Krishna. Naturally, a devotee, because he understands that we are all Mamai Vamso Jiva Loke, we are all Amsa of the Lord. He sees the other Amsa, other living entity, also as a child of the Lord, and they respect each other, they treat each other as friends and not enemies, and they try to educate everybody in Krishna consciousness. This is what we learn from Prahlad's Charitra. So one day, now Prahlada has been going to school. So one day when Hiranyakashipu, he takes his son Prahlada very affectionately on his lap and he asks, my dear son, what did you learn? Let me know, what do you think is the best of all the subjects you have studied from your teachers? He's asking very eagerly. He's thinking that something in the childish banter, this child is going to say something. After all, he's only a 5-year-old. So he asks him like that. And what is the reply of Prahlad Maharaj? Shri Prahlad Uvacha Tat Sadhu Manye Suravarya Dehinam sada samudvigna diyam asadgrahat hitvatma patam griham andakupam vanam gato yadharim ashrayeta. So what he is saying, oh best of asuras, king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master. See, he's not telling Narada, he's telling I have learned from my spiritual master. Any person who has accepted this body, that is this temporary body and temporary household life, is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well where there is no water but only suffering. So one should give up this position and go to the forest, Vana. So more clearly, one should go to Vrindavana, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent and should thus take the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is telling that one should give up this temporary body because the temporary body is the root cause of all miseries in this material world. After all, the material body, material world is also temporary, and this body is also temporary. And a person who thinks that this temporary body is everything and is going to enjoy only the temporary body is like falling into a well without any water, so full of anxieties. So he's saying that is why the person, actually what we should learn, the best thing that I have learned is we should go to the forest, to Vrindavana especially, where you can meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. When Hiranyakashipu he heard the words, he said, because he thought it's a child, he must be talking something. He's saying, oh, this is the intelligence of children spoiled by the words of the enemy. So he thinks that the people, that is the Devatas or Narada Muni, they may be coming in disguise to the ashram and they may be polluting the minds of the children. So what he does is he calls Sanda and Amarka and he tells that you give full protection to my child and see that he is not influenced by bad association. According to them, association of Vaishnavas is bad because they teach them us to go back to Godhead, and for him Vishnu is his enemy. So he says you have to protect my child from bad association. They may come there in any disguise. So when Prahlada Maharaja's teachers, they asked him, they take the child to the ashram and they very nicely, sweetly they asked Prahlad. They asked, how how come you're talking this? We are only teaching you politics and this dharma, this kama and artha. How come that you are talking all these nonsense? Who has taught you this? Who is giving you all these instructions? They ask him very sweetly, thinking that a small child, if you ask very sweetly, is going to answer you very nicely. But what Prahlada says, it shocks them. He says, by the grace of my spiritual master and by the grace of my Lord Krishna, I have now learned that no one is my enemy and no one is my friend. We are all actually eternal servants of Krishna. So he is trying to explain to them that nobody is an enemy. What you are teaching is actually giving us the impression that we are enemies and friends. And further, he tells that, see, the Supreme Lord's external energy is so powerful that it deludes a living entity into thinking that this is my friend and this is my enemy. But when you actually surrender to the Supreme Lord in devotion, you know He helps you and He makes you understand that no one is your enemy and no one is your friend. Everyone is a child of God and everyone has to be loved. So there is no distinction between enemy and friend. All are Krishna's children. But your teachings, they distinct between the enemies and friend, and that is the external energy of Lord Krishna. So when they hear that he is talking so much of Lord Krishna, they ask him, who has taught you all that? Saying Krishna has taught you. So okay, you need a very strong wood to cut the sandalwood tree. So what did Santa and Amarka are saying? Just as a sandalwood tree, there is a thorn which spoils the entire sandalwood forest. This person, now in the sandalwood tree of the Daityas, that is the Daityas, what they are following, they are comparing themselves to sandalwood tree, and it seems Prahlad is a thorn. So Prahlad, he says, I don't have any enemy and I don't have any friend. My consciousness is attracted to the Supreme Lord just as a magnet is just as an iron is attracted to a magnet. In whatever direction the magnet moves, the same direction the iron moves. So in the same way, I am always attracted by Lord Krishna. So he wants to point out to them that Supreme Lord is never the enemy of anyone, but he is a well-wishing friend of everybody. Suhrid Sarva Bhutana. He wants to know that. He wants to explain that. And that is actually the natural position of all the living entities. Now these two, his teachers, they get so angry that he asks, Sanda asks Samarka, you bring a stick now, I have to chastise this boy. What nonsense is he talking? Now Lord Vishnu, he's saying this is a thorn. The thorn wood is only required to cut down the sandalwood trees. You need a strong wood of the thorn tree to cut down the sandalwood trees, and this fellow is doing that. They are saying that Lord Vishnu is the axe, and this fellow is the wood of that handle of the axe. So first we have to correct him, and very sincerely and religiously they teach him dharma, artha, and kama. And after they feel that he has been sufficiently educated, they immediately take him to his mother and they ask him to dress him very nicely and present before Hiranyakashipu. So then Prahlada's mother Kayadu, she nicely dresses a 5-year-old child. She's a mother very fondly, nicely dresses him up, and she goes and she tells him to go and prostrate before his father and take his blessings. The child goes running to Hiranyakashipu, who very lovingly takes Prahlada on his lap, and he says, "Now you have must have learned so many things from your teachers. Now you repeat whatever you think is the best of that knowledge." Now Prahlada is thinking he's already mentioned what earlier also he had mentioned that it is best to not give importance to a temporary body and must go to the forest and think of Lord Hari. And again his father is asking the same question. So this time he says, he talks about the 9 processes of devotional service. That is how we can go closer to God. So, Prahlad Uvacha Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atma Nivedanam Iti Pumsadvita Vishnu Bhaktis Chenava Lakshana Kriyeta Bhagavatyadha Tanmanyeditam Uttamam. So the meaning of this is the 9 processes of devotional service. First is hearing and chanting about the transcendental name of the Lord, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu. So first is Shravanam. Next is remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Shravanam, Kirtanam. Kirtanam, then Smaranam. Smaranam is remembering. Serving the lotus feet of the Lord is Pada Sevanam. Offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, Archana. Offering prayers to the Lord Vandanam. Becoming his servant, Dasyam. Considering the Lord's one's best friend, Sakhyam. And surrendering everything unto him is Pada Sevanam, Sakhyam, Dasyam. Atmanivedanam. So, in other words, serving him with the body, mind, and words. So, he says that these 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. This is the best what he has learned. He is telling Hiranyakashipu. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. So this is given in detail. What is Shravanam is first you have to listen attentively to the holy name of the Lord. That is the beginning of devotional service. So once you start listening, automatically you will come to the next stage, because by listening, by attentive listening, purification starts. So hearing from the text of Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the most important process of hearing. It is full of transcendental chanting of the holy name, and therefore chanting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam are transcendentally full of melodies. Now, in the beginning, when Parikshit Maharaj asks Shukadeva Goswami, he says that Srimad Bhagavatam is full of the narratives of the devotees and the Lord's pastimes, and that is why Narada, because it counteracts the material reactions of this world. So he says, and that is why Narada is always chanting the Srimad Bhagavatam. He is always narrating the Srimad Bhagavatam to everybody so that he can bring people out of this material entanglement. So Shravanam is the first, and we must listen to Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita very sincerely. Srimad Bhagavatam, why? Because Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the Lord's wonderful activities and also about his devotees. Second is Kirtanam. After you listen, then you have to chant the holy name of the Lord. First you have heard, now you should chant the holy name of the Lord. So Shukadeva Goswami, he listened to the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then the same thing he chanted to Parikshit Maharaj. So that is Kirtanam. Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadaharihi. A devotee can very peacefully chant the holy name of the Lord by behaving more humbly than a grass. That is, a devotee will be more humble than a grass. Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna must be more tolerant than the tree. Amanina Manadena, offering respect to everyone without expecting honor from anyone else. Amanina Manadena, even if you are insulted, you should give respect to the others, and we must not expect that we should be given respect in return. Such a humble person, for him it is very easy to chant the holy name of the Lord. So, such humility, these are the qualifications to make it easier for a person to chant the holy name of the Lord. So, Kirtanam is chanting the name, chanting the Lord's glories, activities, that is Kirtanam. So, the process of transcendental chanting can be easily performed by anyone. Even if one is physically unfit, classified lower than others, devoid of material qualification, or not at all elevated in terms of pious activities, the chanting of the holy name is beneficial. An aristocratic birth and advanced education, beautiful bodily features, wealth, and similar results of pious activities are all unnecessary for advancement in spiritual life, for one can very easily advance simply by chanting the holy name. So see, even in Ramayana, Hanuman mentions to Lord Ram that what is our qualification? We are not even human beings, but still we received your mercy. So Hanuman was not even a human being; he was a monkey, and he received so much mercy from Lord Rama. So what is the qualification? The qualification is the love for God. Not that you should be rich or not that you should be beautiful. If you are rich now, only if rich people will be given mercy by Lord, then Sudama, he was not a rich person, but Lord gave him so much of mercy to Sudama. So like that we can give so many examples from our scriptures, like how the Lord gave mercy to uh, uh, his devotees. So to be a devotee or to chant the holy name, you do not require any material qualification. What you require is love of God. So in this age, Kali Yuga, people are generally short-living, extremely bad in their habits, and inclined to accept methods of devotional service that are not bona fide. So now we can see in Kali Yuga how this age is deteriorating and people are not ready to surrender to the Lord. They are not even, so the simple process was given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that uh, wherever you are, in whatever situation you are, whatever birth you belong to, there is no restriction at all. Everybody can chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now, Lord Chaitanya, he was Krishna himself who came as a devotee of Krishna. He is so merciful because he wants to take back his children to him, and that is why he gave us the easiest process of chanting the holy names, the Maha Mantra. So, in this Kali Yuga, if we are not able to do anything, at least we must chant the Maha Mantra sincerely, thinking of Lord Krishna. Automatically, we will be able to understand everything about the Lord. So therefore it is recommended Harer Nama Harer Nama Iva Kevalam Kalau Nasteva Gatir Anyatha. So in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting of the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way, no other way, no other way. When something in the Shastras is said three times means how important it is. To make us understand how important it is repeated three times. Hare Nama Iva Kevalam. That is, other than chanting Hari Nama, there is nothing else. Kalau Nasteva Gatir. There is no other way, no other way, no other way. So we should take it. We should take this easy process of chanting the holy name of the Lord. In other ages, the chanting of the holy name is equally powerful, but especially in this age, Kali Yuga, it is most powerful because it is the Yuga Dharma. Then third one is Smaranam. So first we saw was Shravanam, Kirtanam, now Smaranam. That is after you chant, you remember. So after one regularly performs the process of hearing and chanting, and after the core of one's heart is cleansed, Smaranam, remembering is recommended. Naturally, when your heart is cleansed, Smaranam becomes easy. When you listen to the Lord's kathas, then naturally To think of the Lord's kathas also becomes easy because your purification is taking place by chanting of the holy names. Pada Sevanam. According to one's taste and strength, hearing, chanting, and remembrance may be followed by Pada Sevanam. One obtains the perfection by remembering constantly the lotus feet of the Lord. By intensely attached to thinking of the Lord's lotus feet is called Pada Sevanam. So now in future slide we will see the example of each devotee of the Lord who come under all these 9 processes of devotional service. Archanam. After Pada Sevanam comes the process of Archanam, worship of the deity. If one is interested in the process of Archanam, one must positively take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and learn process from him. So, who is a bona fide spiritual master? One who comes in the Guru Parampara and one who talks about the Brahman, one who teaches about the Lord as the Lord has taught him. Vandanam. The Lord has unlimited transcendental qualities and opulences, and one who feels influenced by the Lord's qualities in various activities offers prayers to the Lord. In this way, he becomes successful. Dasyam. After many thousands and thousands of births, one comes to understand that he is an eternal servant of Krishna. Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavam Mam Prapadyate. That is, after so many millions of births, one comes to understand that he is the eternal servant of Krishna, and then one can deliver others from this universe. Sakhyam. In the stage above Dasi Rasa, the devotee accepts the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a friend. This is not at all astonishing, for when a devotee is pure in heart, the opulence of his worship of the deity diminishes as spontaneous love for the personality of Godhead is manifested. Then Atma Nivedam, that is complete surrender. It refers to the stage at which one who has no motive other than to serve the Lord surrenders everything to the Lord and performs his activities only to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a devotee is like a cow that is cared for its master. Now, cow is also the favorite of Lord Krishna. Krishna will say that the cows do not ask me any questions. He playfully tells the gopis, you ask too many questions, but the cow, it does not ask me any question, just follows me wherever I go. So that is the total surrender. The cow has total faith in Lord Krishna and just follows Lord Krishna wherever Lord Krishna goes. So that is the total surrender of a cow. We also have many instances of so many devotees we can talk about. Madhavendra Puri, so many, when we read the scriptures, we see so many devotees who have who are totally surrendered to the Lord. So now we see how many, how for each and every process a devotee is mentioned. Like Parikshit Maharaj, he attained salvation simply by hearing. So Shravanam, he listened very attentively to Shukadeva Goswami who was telling him the Bhagavatam. So Parikshit Maharaj, he attained salvation by Shravanam. Shukadev Goswami attains salvation simply by chanting. So after he listened to the Srimad Bhagavatam, he chanted the same to Parikshit Maharaj, and he also attained salvation. Prahlad Maharaj attained constantly by remembering the Lord. Prahlad Maharaj always, he was always in Krishna consciousness in whatever situation, even in the most dangerous situations, he never forgot um Lord Vishnu. So that is what we have to learn from Prahlad Maharaj, and that is why he is considered as a very exalted devotee. Because even when there are discussions amongst demigods and sages, always the discussion of Prahlad Maharaj as an exalted devotee is always mentioned amongst their discussions. Lakshmi Devi, she attained perfection by worshipping the Lord's lotus feet. So Pada Sevana. Brithu Maharaj attained by worshipping the deity of the Lord. Archana. Akrura attained salvation by offering prayers. Vandanam. When Akrura he came to Vrindavan to take Krishna and Balram back to Mathura, he saw the Lord's lotus feet on the sand, on the mud of Mathura, on Vrindavan. And the moment he saw that, he just got down from his chariot and started rolling over the feet of the footprints of the Lord. So that was his way of offering prayers, and he attained salvation of that. Hanuman by rendering service. We all know of Hanuman's Dasya attitude to Lord Rama. He never questioned Lord Rama. Whatever instructions given by Lord Rama, Hanuman followed it to the T. So he was the best servant of the Lord. So Dasya. Arjuna by establishing friendship with the Lord. Arjuna was a very, very great friend of the Lord, and the Lord also reciprocated his friendship. How? by becoming a friend of his brothers as well as by becoming a charioteer, because a charioteer is supposed to be the most menial post in this material world. But Lord Krishna agreed to become his charioteer because Arjuna wanted a very able charioteer in this war, and Krishna agreed to do that. So Krishna is ready to do anything for his devotee. That is how he reciprocates in devotional service. Bali Maharaj, by offering everything to the service of the Lord. When Lord came as Vamana Dev, he took the land and the earth from Bali Maharaj and he asked him, where should I keep the third foot? So Bali Maharaj offered him his head. That is, everything belongs to you. Now I don't have anything. I surrender myself totally to you. And the Lord placed his third foot on Bali Maharaj and sent him to Sutalaloka. And he said, in the next 1 month, Manu, you will be the Indra. Till then, you remain in Sutalalok, and I myself will be your doorkeeper. Nobody will trouble you in Sutalalok. So these are the great devotees who attain salvation by these by one of the 9 processes of devotional service. So what was Hiranyakashipu's reaction after hearing this from Prahlad? Because he is talking about devotional service to Lord Vishnu. So you can just imagine the reaction of Hiranyakashipu when he hears his son talking about his worst enemy. So that we will see in the next class. We will continue that in the next session. Contact this person for Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you. Hare Krishna.